Welcome to a new episode of The Simpsons Did It. I'm your host, Steven Skolansky.
And I'm your co-host, Robert Skolansky. And have you ever had our mom as a substitute when you were a kid?
No, I wasn't. But I was thinking about actually substituting you this episode just so we kind of could follow along with the theme of it. But I decided to keep you on anyway.
Oh, thanks.
I know.
Well, instead of substituting me out, we're adding somebody in this week.
We are. And she is amazing. And her co-host is amazing. I've kind of followed this podcast along since she became our biggest fan, I think, the moment we launched.
Nice.
Probably like 6 months ago. I think 6 months ago, maybe. Yeah. And she sent me a message. She's like, "Oh, I absolutely love this podcast." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, you're like pretty much like our first fan that has been following us along. Yep. So you're amazing." And so I listened to her Harry Potter stuff and just kind of got enthralled with it. And it was really amazing. Our guest today has a podcast called Friends Do Fandom. I'm sure there's a ton of fandom that they're going to talk about over the course of their entire career of podcasting. But right now it's all Harry Potter themed and it's absolutely amazing. And so I want to welcome to the program one of the co-hosts of Friends Do Fandom, Christy.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming
Absolutely.
I am so happy to be here. So yeah, that is all very accurate. I saw your podcast name and I was like, yes, they're rewatching The Simpsons. Yes. Like I think you guys are probably about the same age as me, like what, mid-30s?
Yeah, I'm 37.
I'm going to be 34 in like 2 months now.
Okay. So I'm 33. So I stumbled onto The Simpsons in like 90s. I was like, 10, 11, 12-ish years old. And then, I just got obsessed. So it's funny that like, as you're doing the rewatch, there's been stuff that I'm like, oh, I missed this the first time, or I find it funnier, or I missed an entire episode because like back in the day, you could miss an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, unless you had a VCR or were recording on the day that it was on.
Who does that? Oh, wait.
Yeah, I know, right? We do. I have an entire closet full of VHS tapes to prove it.
Oh my gosh. I used to obsessively make sure that my VHS was set to record like The Simpsons, like the Sunday lineup was my like jam back in the day.
Yeah, they had a good Sunday lineup back in the day.
Absolutely. So you kind of stole our first question for you, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. But we do like asking all of our guests. I mean, what drove you to The Simpsons? Was it something that the first episode you ever watched kind of hooked you, or was it something about the Simpsons family in general that you saw in yourself, or what made you kind of watch The Simpsons and continue watching it?
Yeah, I definitely I could relate to the dysfunctional family unit, and I definitely related to Lisa Simpson. I am a Lisa Simpson. I'm that like straight A student. I worked hard in school and I never understood like the Bart Simpsons of the world. So I definitely related to the like, what is wrong with me? Like, I must be weird. I must be unique. And then you kind of find your niche. And in finding Lisa and being so relatable to her and like Marge in like the early seasons of like that mom figure, I just fell in love with like the humor and the characters and the storylines. And Homer Simpson versus New York, the state of New York, the city of New York is one of my like episode. Top 5 like I could watch that. I know the entire episode front to back. And I talking about you guys, I was very impressed with your notes for the show because I was like, I have this book from like the 90s, and I'm sure like
Steve has that book.
You guys must have that same book because I was referring to it to like Be like, I'm going to one up their knowledge with this knowledge. And then I saw it in your show notes and I was like, oh, they have that same book. They must.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, so the funny thing is, I don't actually have the book. Steve has the book. So yes, sometimes he will put, notes or quotes from the book in there, but I feel like there are times where I've already beat him to it just by watching the episode first.
Yeah, and oddly enough, I mean, obviously everyone watches episodes a little bit differently, which is why we kind of pass the notes back and forth. And there's things that Robert will add in there that I just didn't think about, or maybe just necessarily didn't make the book. Like whoever wrote it just didn't make it. And so, but yeah, I have the complete guide to our favorite family, and I have the part 2 of that one as well.
I do too.
And I don't know why they stopped. I mean, this is an amazing work of art here for this book. And I swear, I don't know if the author just decided not to continue doing it, but I swear they should.
How many seasons do they go up to for those 2 books?
I think 10 between both of them.
That's it?
10 or 12 between the two.
They got to bring out more.
I know, right? Just makes our job a little bit easier in the long run.
So, moving on to season 2, episode 19 of Lisa's Substitute,
which we did let Christy pick because we wanted to make sure she was, having her favorite season 2 episode.
Correct.
We
always like to have our guests, pick their favorite episode because then it's more fun to talk about. So this aired on April 25th, 1991. Again, we have 3 episodes left of season 2.
I know.
It's sad, but we'll get into we're getting into the meat and potatoes of like the best Simpsons episodes. Recap for this episode: Homer pales in comparison with Lisa's teacher, as is Bart with his opponent for class president. Chalkboard this week? There was none. They decided the one episode.
Laziness. We're talking about all the repeated couch gags. And then they go and do something like this.
Oh, I was so salty about the couch gag. I was so not only that, but and then I've heard you guys talk about what the tricks that they did to cut, runtime so that they could fit in more content. And so part of me is like, well, maybe we didn't get a chalkboard gag because there's more content in this episode.
About an extra minute, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it's funny. Me and Robert were talking about this before. I mean, just rewatching this episode again with, kind of fresh eyes just made us realize how amazing this episode is. And, the lack of chalkboard gag, I think I'm okay with it.
And the couch gag is another repeat. The Simpsons run into the living room to find the couch is missing.
I mean, that is kind of classic.
I know. To be perfectly honest, with the season 2 stuff, I get why they have the couch gag there, but if you're just going to keep repeating it, because as we've talked about in the past, they cut out chalkboard and couch gags to fill a little bit more time. If you're just going to repeat the couch gag, you might as well just cut it and give yourself maybe an extra 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah. Or add time, throw another commercial in there.
Yeah. Right. So we start out at Springfield Elementary School. We see Lisa's class talking about how Miss Hoover, their teacher, is late getting to school. And there's a couple rumors going around. One of them is she drank a bottle of drain cleaner by mistake, or she fell down a well.
Yeah. Have you ever done that? Drinking a bottle of drain cleaner by mistake?
No.
Okay. Just putting it out there. I mean, I don't know how one accidentally drinks a bottle of drain cleaner.
Well, and so the weird thing about this is it seems like it's the beginning of the school day. And when I was in high school, and I don't know if you guys remember any story from your high school or middle school or even elementary school days where a kid brought a gun to school, and by 7th period, the rumor was the teacher who caught the student was shot. Now, clearly that didn't happen because we would have been removed from school, but kids have active imaginations.
Yep. I mean, it is kind of funny how and like you said, it was be the beginning of the day, which I think it was, because I mentioned earlier on that the clock says 9:15. So obviously it was I would think right away in the morning.
So Skinner brings Miss Hoover coming in crying, and then Lisa comments that she was dumped again. And the weird thing is, this is what, like the second time we've seen Miss Hoover in The Simpsons?
Yeah, I think so. Pretty close.
Why would they go that route with that comment for Lisa? It just seems weird that, I mean, I guess later on in the episode we kind of learned why she left, but I don't know. To me, it was an odd comment because we don't know any background to Miss Hoover.
But the kids do.
That's true.
All right. But yeah, we find out she has Lyme disease. And I love Principal Skinner. You know, there's like, what's Lyme? Or Ralph's like, what's Lyme disease? It's like, Lyme disease is spread by small parasites called ticks. When a diseased tick attaches itself to you and begins sucking your blood. And then Miss Hoover's like, oh. And they're like, malignant spirochetes infect your bloodstream, eventually spreading to your spinal fluid and into your brain.
And then she goes like, the brain. Oh, dear God. It's just, it's so good. Her little like to herself, the brain.
And do you think she even knew the actual symptoms to Lyme disease? Because obviously we'll get to this later in the episode of why she didn't really have it. But I feel like she didn't even know the side effects or what having Lyme disease actually meant.
I don't think anyone does. Like, so this is a complete aside. At one point in my life, my doctors thought I would have Lyme disease. It's no joke. Like, when you're looking at like, your symptoms and you're getting all the blood work and they're like, oh, it could potentially be Lyme. You're like, what?
Yeah, I actually had a camp counselor, and it was like 2 weeks after camp was ended, actually passed away of Lyme disease. This was like 19 years ago or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, as you said, Lyme disease is no joke. And if they don't catch it right away, it's pretty deadly.
Yeah, it's kind of like rabies. I mean, you don't catch it, that's it.
So I did make mention here that Ralph asked what Lyme disease was, and I feel like for a second grader, that's not a dumb question, because when I was 6 or 7, I didn't know what Lyme disease was.
Yeah.
And so I had mentioned they didn't make Ralph dumb like they do in, future episodes. However, I was wrong on that, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yep. So we learn Miss Hoover's first name is Elizabeth, and I honestly can't remember. Maybe you guys can, but I can't really remember any of my teachers' first names or anyone really calling them by their first names.
Not really.
I'm friends with like a few of my teachers on Facebook, and when it's their birthday, I'll be like, happy birthday, Mr. and Mrs. whatever, fill in the blank. And they're like, Christy, you can call me like Tim. And I'm like, nope, no.
Well, that's weird.
It's weird.
I think I had one high school teacher that I was able to call by their first name, I think. But other than that, yeah, until I hit college, I mean,
I don't even think in college I called any of my professors by their first name.
Well, you also went to the University of Minnesota. I went to I still went to the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, but I feel like maybe that's a less formal college. I don't know.
Yeah, I went to a Catholic college in like Nowheresville, New Hampshire. So
yeah. I bet everything was pretty strict there, right?
Yeah, for someone who's not, so fun fact, I'm not like Catholic, I'm Orthodox. So like going in, I was like an oddity. So like every time something different would happen, like religiously, and we don't want to get into that too much on the podcast, but they would look at me and be like, so what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a human being. I don't know. It was very strict. All the sisters did not like me because I was not Catholic. But anyway. Ooh. Yeah.
All right. So I like how the clock on the wall went from 9:15 when the principal and Miss Hoover walked in, and then it was 9:20 when they started talking about Lyme disease, and then when she walked out, it was 9:32. So like it didn't seem like it took 17 minutes.
and they never cut away.
Exactly.
So Yeah,
either
it's
the
really weird.
animators, but so it's kind of like I kind of thought about it like if they were, let's say it was live action, it's kind of almost similar to that because as far as continuity goes, I don't know if clocks are high on the list of things people look at, but the fact that it didn't stay 9:15 meant that the animators knew there was some change in time.
I
Yeah.
noticed that too and like totally appreciated it. But yeah, I agree that I don't think that conversation would have been 17 minutes.
No.
And then the clock had a power cord running down the wall into an outlet. I don't remember any school clocks.
I think our elementary school had power cords for the clocks. I think I do
Really?
remember that.
And I 100% remember power cords.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I always thought it was just kind of like the the exit signs and everything in the school is all like wired into the building. I had just assumed clocks were just either wired into the building by power or were battery powered like most clocks are. But
No, I
man,
definitely remember the power cord.
yeah, well, I guess I was wrong. My memories did not suit me for that.
Moving on, I do like the give a hoot, read a book sign from when Krusty was framed. They talk about his literacy program, and there's a sign on a fish that says "Don't touch fish," which is probably good advice. It's probably good advice for 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds. Lisa's 8.
Yep.
If there's one thing I appreciate is these sign gags.
Yes.
There's something for you to look at any given point.
Mm-hmm.
And the fun part is finding them. Like we were talking about the whole book situation. That wasn't in the book. There was nothing that. Oh, wait, actually, you know what? Maybe there was. I think no, just the give a hoot, read a book sign was in the book. But the fish one, I that was all me.
Okay.
So Skinner is about to take over Lisa's class when screams are heard from above. And Skinner replies, "Bart Simpson, I know it's you."
Now here's the thing, and I wrote this in the notes. Is so in our elementary school, first grade and kindergarten were on the same level. Second and third had their own levels, and then the fourth and fifth graders shared a level. So
the top floor. Yeah,
the top floor was fourth and fifth. So, but in Springfield, and I guess we see in the outside of the school, it's only 3 levels, if I remember correctly. So I guess it would probably make sense that he could hear the screams, but I feel it's a little bit of a plot drive to put Bart's class right above Lisa's class, just so that we could get the plot to drive along.
Yeah, we again from Nowheresville, New Hampshire. I had all grades were in the same building, K through 6, and it wasn't until like I was heading into middle school that our school was getting too small and we had portable classrooms outside. But what I was really sad about was that this might have been too early for a floor gag. Do you guys know what I'm talking about when I wrote this? It's like when the camera pans from like floor 1 to floor 2, and there's always something to look at. Like I'm like with the sign gags, there's like a pin or like an old book. I was hoping to see something.
I was right there with you. I saw that scene and I'm like, there's nothing in between the floors. That's kind of sad.
So far, the floor gag has only been in, I think, 2 or 3. There was the Bart gets hit by a car when they go from hell up to his room. And so far nothing has been in the middle, but I know at least one time in the Simpsons home when they do that, there's like a dead rat or something in the middle.
Yeah.
So hopefully soon enough we'll get a floor gag here. Maybe season 3.
You guys want to say you have to put a pin in it?
Yes, we'll put a pin in it. And we will come back to it.
So we get up to Bart's classroom, and it must be like show and tell or something.
It is, yes.
Because Bart is showing the class a video of Snowball 2's birth.
Yes, entitled How Kittens Are Born, The Ugly Story.
The Ugly Truth. Not the ugly story, the ugly truth.
It is
No. It is an ugly story.
Let's be real.
Yeah. I do like so Bart, he's like, the kids are screaming because they're watching a live birth, and he talks about how they were going to keep a gray one, but the mother ate it. And I was like, I thought, I'm like, well, is this something that cats do? And it is. Cats may eat their kittens, typically if they are deformed, stillborn, or have birth defects. A mother cat may also eat her young if she is stressed. So it is something that mother cats do. They sometimes eat their young. It's gross, but hey, we're learning. We like learning on this show.
Yep. And then Bart holds up the remote and says, "Oh, look, this is really cool. When I hit reverse, I can make them go back in."
Oh gosh.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't think they've gone through sex ed yet,
No.
at least in Bart's grade. Like, so he's 4th grade. So I apparently, I mean, I don't think we did, or maybe we did. Maybe it was 5th grade that we started doing it.
I
But
don't remember until like 6th grade doing sex education.
Oh, really? Maybe it was. Like I said, time is very strange when you think back that far.
Yep.
So I did note that. So when you first see the shot of Bart's classroom, it doesn't seem like a full classroom. You only see like 7 or 8 kids plus Mrs. Krabappel. And it's like the first couple of shots, but then when he does the rewind thing, you see the entire classroom. And to me, it was kind of weird that it didn't seem like the full class was there until like the final shot.
It's hard to draw kids. Lots of kids. Maybe. I don't know. I saw that too. And when I saw the note, I'm like, oh, that it kind of clicked. I'm like, oh, I guess there were less kids when they first started showing it. Or it was the angle. I don't know.
Maybe it was the angle. It was just really weird.
But yeah, so I like how after Bart shows after rewinding the tape, Wendell puts his hands over his mouth if he's going to vomit when Bart's playing the video kitten backwards. And we do know that Wendell has a nausea problem.
I thought it was a motion sickness problem.
Nausea, motion sickness, I guess.
I mentioned that in the book.
It did.
Oh, man.
Don't tell everyone our secrets.
It'll be just secrets.
Yeah. Here's a secret. I use Wikipedia. A little bit. Well, I don't have the book. All right. So we go back to the 2nd grade with Skinner teaching Lisa's class about a schwa, which is an upside down lowercase e, which in my notes, I wrote, look it up if you like. I didn't understand it. I think it was something with like numbers.
I mean, I think Lisa would have been the only one to understand it if she knew, but I do like that. We'll get to it a little bit later about, Mr. Bergstrom not following Miss Hoover's lessons plan, but apparently Skinner doesn't want to follow Miss Hoover's lessons plan either, because I don't think Miss Hoover is going to be talking about this stuff.
Okay, when a almost 34-year-old doesn't understand a schwa, I'm pretty sure 7 and 8-year-olds won't either.
No, I get that, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think it would have been in Miss Hoover's lessons plans.
Yeah. I don't think so. Not for
So what the hell was Principal Skinner talking about?
I don't know.
I just don't get it. But then all of a sudden, Mr. Bergstrom burst into the classroom, shooting off his guns.
Yeah, that was really weird.
Which were blanks. Yeah. Hopefully.
Well, I mean, if they weren't, he shot up into Bart's classroom. So, no. Maybe somebody might want to go check on Bart's classroom if those weren't blanks.
Maybe they were at recess. No one knew.
It's possible.
Bart comes back. Why are there holes in my desk?
Why are there holes in the ground?
Right.
So Mr. Bergstrom is voiced by Dustin Hoffman, who actually used a pseudonym in this episode, like a lot of early voice actors and actresses, because they didn't really think The Simpsons was going to go far, and now they're probably kicking themselves. But he used the pseudonym Sam Edick, which is a play on the word Semitic, which little bit of a spoiler alert here, not on the fact that Hoffman is Jewish, but his character is also Jewish. So that's why he chose Semitic as his pseudonym, because both him and his character are Jewish.
Yeah, you could tell by the big nose, the curly hair.
His voice.
His voice.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, we're both Jewish. I don't know if people can tell by your voice.
Probably not. I would go off a limb and say probably not.
I honestly like had no idea this was Dustin Hoffman, and I thought I heard. I was like, this is super familiar, and I went to the book and I saw it says, oh, played by Sam Eddick, and I was like, who the hell is Sam Eddick? Like, what is this?
You Googled it, didn't you?
I did not. I went to
Oh.
your notes, and then the notes said Dustin Hoffman. I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Like, I could hear it then.
But an upcoming guest, we might ask him why a said character did not use his real name in the show.
I actually think I know the answer to that, but I'm curious to see if I am right.
Yeah. So
Ooh.
you didn't hear it from me about a secret guest coming up on a show
that we record.
Yes.
But we're all gonna be. I'm really pumped to hear that episode.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Yeah. I like it. All right, so Principal Skinner, a Vietnam veteran, takes
Spoiler alert.
Yes, we don't technically know this yet, or maybe we do. I guess I don't think we do. No. Takes immediate cover when Mr. Bergstrom enters the classroom shooting blanks,
which in hindsight makes sense. Although to be fair,
would anyone do that?
Yeah, I think anybody would probably just cower in fear if somebody all of a sudden busted in and started shooting off guns.
I have a follow-up question, and again, spoiler alert for those who haven't watched later seasons. Did they change the war? And I don't know if either of you have watched past like season, 14, like 20, like whatever season they're on now, but like did they change his veteran status at all?
Not that, I mean, I've watched, I'm caught up through this season, but
outside of the fake Seymour episode, I don't think they really touch on that, do they?
I was going to say, other than was it the principal and the pauper, right? Was that episode?
Yeah. I think that was the last time they even talk about him really being in the service. I mean, I really can't think of anything else. Yeah. I mean, there was the episode where he quits being or he gets fired and then he goes back to the army.
Well, that's Principal and the pauper.
No. That's the one where Bart's dog gets caught in the vent and then he falls out.
Oh yeah, that's a good episode.
Yes,
good one.
But in that episode, when he goes back to teach at the Army Academy, I don't even think in that episode they say where he was a veteran from.
Yeah,
to my knowledge, but I think, like you said, the Principal and the pauper, I think that's really the only other episode where they talk about what war he was in.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious.
We could put another pin in it. That was farther away, but I'm sure we'll remember. I have
20 years from now. So do you remember that episode where we talked about Principal Skinner being a Vietnam veteran?
I'll come back for that episode.
Okay. You can remind us that you're our pin for that one.
Love that. I'll see you guys then.
Perfect. So we learned there are 3 things wrong with Mr. Bergram's outfit. And so, he first asked, like, I'll give a special gift to anyone who could tell me the 3 things wrong with what I'm wearing. And obviously the smartest one in the room, Lisa, says it. So the belt buckle says state of Texas, but Texas wasn't a state until 1845. The revolver wasn't invented until 1835. And Lisa correctly guesses that the substitute is Jewish and there weren't any Jewish cowboys. And I like how he's like, oh, I was also wearing a digital watch.
But so here's the thing. He accepts all the answers. And in fact, there were Jewish cowboys.
Yes.
There were. And you guys talked about this in your prior episode when Homer had a digital watch. And
yes.
And do we feel as though Mr. Bergstrom would have been able to afford a digital watch in the 90s?
As a substitute teacher? Probably not.
That's not.
Per diem. Like, I used to substitute teach. They don't, like, pay you very well.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. And I do like the fact that even in these future episodes that they get to, they make fun of Apple having their eye products and stuff like that. And Homer Simpson's obviously gets side jobs in the future. Maybe that's to pay for all the extravagant things that he owns. You know what I mean? Like he becomes Mr. Plow eventually. Maybe he just did. Obviously, he wanted to, help out, but maybe he was in it for the extra money to afford all the, digital watches he can't really afford.
Maybe.
Yep. So so Mr. Bergstrom, this is awesome. I've never had maybe, you know what? I think there is one substitute teacher that I ever had, or maybe it was a real teacher, where they allowed us to come up with funny names to actually call them. I think it was Mr. Joswick. Was it Mr. Joswick?
Oh, it might have been Jaws.
I think it might have been him, where he allowed us to call him by other names.
By the way, coolest 7th grade / 8th grade teacher I've ever had.
By far. But yeah, I like how it was Mr. Nerdstrom and Mr. Boogerstrom.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I can't speak today. This is like a dangerous game, and I go out to those guys, like the substitute teacher you guys are talking about, because I was just too chicken to do anything like that. Because so my maiden name was Cacklamanis, and as a kid I used to be called. They would call me Kangamangus, which is the famous highway in New Hampshire where I live. So I got that a lot.
It's a really weird thing, by the way.
It's a very oddly specific thing. But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys feel like that would be, is that the gender thing? Like, is that the male substitute teacher versus female? And mind you, when I was substitute teaching, I was 19, 20, doing it during this, when I was off of school. Do you feel that would have been the divider there as well?
Maybe. I think male just humor is slightly different sometimes, especially in the 90s. I feel like
that's true.
Just male humor was a little bit more off the wall.
Oh yeah.
And I could see a teacher, saying, you know what, if you want to make fun of my name, it's good. I feel like look at it like this. If you tell someone to do it, they're more likely not to do it because a grown-up said to do it.
That's true.
So maybe it was smart. Maybe he was just thinking. He's like, you know what? I'm going to tell these kids they can call me weird names, and you know what? I bet they will not do it.
No, they did not. So we cut back to Bart's class, and they are doing student elections. And for their election process, they do nominations, a campaign, and then the election, which is pretty standard for any election. I guess the one thing they didn't really talk about was, donor dinners, but
yeah, right.
4th grade. But yeah, that's a pretty standard election process. People get nominated, they tell people what they stand for, you have an election, and you lose by 2 votes.
Yeah, right. But that's a spoiler. Stop that. But so one thing I didn't write down, but I was thinking about it right now. So for class president, you would obviously, your pool would be the entire 4th grade.
Correct.
My assumption being is the entire 4th grade isn't in one classroom, because you'd have different subjects of, you have your science class, English class. All the entire 4th grade would be separated out. They wouldn't, all the students would. So is Springfield Elementary that small, or did it just so happen that we all knew Martin was going to be one of them? And well, to make the story even plausible, Sherry and Terry are like, well, we should nominate Bart Simpson.
Yeah.
Or was there, was that the class size in Springfield? Was it a small school?
It seems like their class size is about 20 kids, which is a plausible thing. Christy, I don't know, growing up in New Hampshire, if you remember your class sizes at all.
Yeah, we had, it was probably about 3 or 4 per grade. So 3 4th grades, couple 4th grades. Yeah. So and probably about the high 20s per class size.
Okay.
So I mean, so even that's on the low end. So 60 total, 60 total students in the fourth grade, but you're only taking a pool for class president out of one of those classrooms. It either seems really odd, or the Springfield Elementary, literally Bart's classroom is the entirety of the fourth grade.
Or the other option is maybe their specific class is learning about the election process, so they are just
Or that.
nominating Martin for that specific class. And
Maybe. Yeah. It just seems really weird.
Yeah.
But then, like,
I was just kind of.
yeah, but then to add to the weirdness is what Mrs. Krabappel does.
Yeah. Yep. She suggests that the class that they vote for Martin.
Yeah, not sure if that's ethical.
It's not.
In any election.
Well, no, but to be fair, the pool of qualified candidates in that classroom,
very, very
little bit light.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you know what? Sherry and Terry, president, vice president. I might have voted that way too.
I could see that.
Yeah. Now in a future episode, we do see a flash forward where Bart isn't he a judge?
Yes.
So it's not that far fetched that Bart maybe should be class president.
Maybe. He gets slightly smarter in the future.
And then in some episodes he doesn't. So, I mean, who knows?
Yep. So now we head back to Lisa's classroom, and Mr. Bergstrom, or Boogerstrom, gives the class pelican as a snack.
Why?
I don't know.
Who eats pelican?
It's a tasty bird.
Do you think
kind of
like beef jerky consistency? Like, what does a pelican taste like?
Anybody out there, if you've ever eaten a pelican, please let us know.
I have questions.
Well, okay, maybe it's along the same line as a duck. I mean, they're a little bit bigger birds, but they're an aquatic bird, so maybe duck and pelican have the same consistency.
I don't know. Again, anybody out there, if you've eaten pelican, please, we have questions that need answers.
All right, so now he starts singing Home on the Range,
which is factually inaccurate,
as we learn.
So fun fact, so when they originally recorded Hoffman's singing parts, they were too low, so they had to ask him to come back and re-record them.
Like his voice register was too low?
Yeah.
That is kind of interesting.
So obviously, Christy and Steve, and myself, we do the podcast, and I work in television where I do a lot of editing. Well, Christy, I don't know how much audio editing you do with your podcast, but if somebody's voice is too low and you bring up the level of that audio, eventually you get to the point where it's going to sound really bad. So what I'm assuming happened was it was at that point where they didn't record it properly, so it was too low. And when they tried to bring it up, they got the hissing sound in the background, which you can hear like a white noise. So got to have them come back and re-record it.
That is.
I guess I've never done that.
Yeah, I think that the worst thing that's ever happened to me was if I'm like recording video and audio on site, and like the video on my phone won't pick up great audio, and I've thought about like trying to put the audio that I record from my like computer dubbed, and I'm like, that's way too much work for me. So I usually just scratch the video at that point. I'm like, it's just gonna be an audio.
Trying to dub audio on the video is not easy.
No.
Yep. Yeah, the mouth moving and the audio, I've done it. It's hard, but I've done it. All right. So Lisa gets caught with a note where the teacher is drawn on it. And I do like how it has like stink lines on it too.
Yeah.
Like they drew little stink lines, and the title of it is The Singing Dork.
Yeah. I didn't draw it. Well, it's really good, but so you like it, but I didn't draw it. Where she goes back and forth. I'm like,
I mean, would any of you take credit for a note being passed if the teacher actually liked it?
See, as a Lisa, I 100% related to this moment. Like, I've been part of a like I remember parts of class where like the teacher would leave and like I would kind of sit there and like, what do I do? Do I act out with the rest of the kids, or do I sit here and kind of like be the Eagle Scout for my teacher? And like it's such a hard line because like, and then when the teacher comes back and is either A, fine with whatever silliness is happening, or B, asks you specifically, hey, what happened? You're kind of like, it's so hard. I don't know that I would have taken credit for it.
I don't think I would take credit. I don't ever remember a time when I was in school where kids would pass notes and it would get to me. I think maybe once or twice, but teacher never caught me with the note, so I never luckily was in that situation.
Yeah, I do like how Lisa is in that type of situation, because you look at the two people in the school that kind of have the same similarities. So like Lisa and Martin are very similar in the smartness. They but I think the one difference is Martin is, like you said, the kind of the Eagle Scout policing the room where something goes wrong, whereas Lisa is kind of on that, I'm going to kind of stay out of the way, because Martin just gets his ass kicked and thrown in a locker if you say anything, whereas Lisa's like, you know what, I know something's wrong, but I'm going to deny it, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Mm-hmm.
But then another note gets passed to Lisa, and now it's her as the singing Dorkette. But I like how those notes were drawn like really quickly. Like someone was like, "Oh, Lisa's not going to take credit for it. Quickly draw it here, Lisa.
Yeah,
you're the singing Dorkette."
And
so it almost happened anyway. Like without her taking credit for it. And I almost wonder, had she taken credit for it, if that note still would have been passed. I almost think it would have, because now she's the goody two shoes that took credit for the note that wasn't hers.
Yeah, I think it would have gotten passed anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we cut back to Bart's class, and Miss Krabappel's like, oh, who else should be nominated? And Sherry and Terry nominate Bart. And Bart goes, well, I had a speech ready, but my dog ate it. And the kids laugh. To be fair, that was hilarious.
That is such a Bart thing to say.
And plus, Santa's little helper does... now, granted, they did do the training school, and he's all trained up, but maybe, he still eats stuff here and there. I mean, he's a dog.
He's a dog. Yep.
So it would be... Now, obviously, it's a joke because Bart didn't realize he was going to get nominated. And so Mrs. Krabappel wants to distract Bart, and so she wants Bart to deliver a message to the principal's office that reads, please keep Bart busy for a few minutes.
Can I add, I was applauding this moment for Mrs. Krabappel, number one. But number two, as a former teacher myself, I've had a few Barts, and I don't know that I would have trusted him to not read that note.
Yes.
I probably would have read that note.
I would have.
And I'm not a Bart.
Or at least on the way to the principal's office. I could see him not reading it in the classroom, but as he walks out into the principal's office, him cracking it open and reading it then.
Yes. I feel like that's a dangerous game, because he's going to look at it and go, oh my God, I don't really need to go to the principal's office, turn himself right back around.
Now, on the flip side, so sophomore year of high school, my second semester English, I had a different teacher. One of the coolest teachers in my high school. He sent a kid, he gave him a pink slip, told him to go to the office, and in the reason column, he wrote something like, he's stupid. Like, it wasn't a real reason, and the kid had no idea that he wrote that until he got to the principal's office. So, to counterpoint, it might not actually be too far-fetched that Bart wouldn't read it. I do agree with you that he probably would, because it's Bart, but I have seen a situation where a teacher has written a pink slip, put a stupid reason on there, and sent a kid on his way, and the kid had no idea.
I mean, I would be not, I wouldn't be honest if I hadn't sent my share of kids to the principal's office and like just made up a reason to just get them out of my classroom. But this is reason number of many of why I'm not teaching anymore.
Yep, and I'm sure you would have gotten Bart's comment back, but Miss Krabappel, how would I know where the principal's office is?
Said so innocently.
Yep, not like he, has ever been there before for any reason.
Nope, he's never been there. Bart's a great kid. I can't even get
As his file in the Principal Skinner's office would show.
Yeah, what is that, like 9 folders, 8
Yeah.
folders?
He has an entire just like cabinet drawer dedicated.
How he hasn't been expelled yet, beyond me.
So, after she sends Bart out, she admonishes the class for encouraging him. What? And while she's doing this, Bart is putting his face up against the glass window to the room, and the kids cheer some more.
I feel like I quote that often, that what have I told you about encouraging them?
Yeah. Stop encouraging students.
Well, stop encouraging him to be a class clown, I think is what she's getting at.
Yeah, but I don't think Bart would ever not do it. I don't think Bart needs encouragement. I mean, it does help fuel the fire, but I don't think Bart technically needs encouragement to do it.
Yeah.
All right, so we get to Mr. Bergstrom again, and he's reading Charlotte's Web to the class. And the line he reads is not the final line in the book. There's still one chapter left. The Simpsons couldn't get the rights to the book. That's all they could read without getting sued. I mean, early on show, getting rights to, I'm sure, anything was probably like pulling teeth.
Yeah, they asked, I can't think of the author's name for Charlotte's Web, but they asked like the family, and the family said no. So they could only get, this is all they could use. So it sounds like they wanted to use more, but they were like, the estate was like, no, not happening.
I mean, it makes sense for the show, though. That was a great, even though it wasn't the end of the book, I think it hit the right spot in the episode to just make it, Lisa tear up and, just make her fall in love with Mr. Bergstrom even more.
But I liked, that's an interesting tidbit, because I don't think I realized that that's the excerpt that they chose, but now I'm just getting Willie in my head. It's a shinning. You want to get sued?
And that was season 4 Treehouse of Horror, I think. So I think probably maybe still at that point they were just having issues getting rights to anything.
Now here's the thing: when it comes to the Treehouse of Horror stuff, because it's a parody, they don't actually need to ask permission to use it because they are parodying it. It's it's the same thing with Weird Al. He's got one song he never asked permission to use, and he always asks any of the artists. They usually say yes because most artists are like, oh, it's a rite of passage to get parodied by Weird Al. And the one song he didn't ask was Amish Paradise, which is Gangster's Paradise by Coolio. And Coolio was pissed, but eventually Coolio eventually came around. But yeah, so obviously the Simpsons don't want to read more than what they're told not to read.
Yeah, well, I just listened to a recent interview with Yardley Smith, who does voice Lisa, and she was saying that for all the songs that are parodied, the Simpsons actually couldn't get the rights to those songs either, and so the orchestra would write the notes to it, and it would be off by a half a note or a note.
Yeah,
but she was saying because the songs that they were singing are so ingrained in their heads that she would have to take like 6-7 takes because she'd be singing the song and just the notes would click in her brain saying, oh, this is the real notes, and forget to change them. After that's all over, Mr. Bergstrom wants to see everyone's talents, which it's kind of weird for teachers to ask, weird talents, not just, like Lisa's, of all of the talents, Lisa's was definitely like the realest talent, because I knew a few kids who could stick out their tongue to their nose. That was good. The random kid flipping his eyelids inside out. I knew some people. Did you guys know people that could do that? I knew people that could do that.
I know, and it's gross.
It's so gross. I agree with that. It's Still gross.
I mean, it was crazy. I mean, my friend Ben could take his tongue and turn it into 3 loops. Like, you know how you could like fold your tongue in half?
Oh, yeah.
He can make it into 3 loops on the tip of his tongue.
Interesting.
I can turn my tongue completely upside down. Can you guys do anything fun?
I can put my entire thumb behind my hand.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture the tongue upside down thing, and I'm just like, how does that work?
Like I could just turn my tongue, like turn it and it's upside down.
Okay. That's a visual.
Yes, that's more of a visual thing you gotta see.
I think I can roll my tongue, but as far as like actual this is gonna sound like a terrible thing. As far as actual talents, I can play the piano.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, I can play the violin, so I have some actual. Yeah. Can you still play the clarinet, Steve?
No, but you know what my new talent is? I can podcast.
Yes.
Woo! All right.
So, Mr. Bergstrom sees Lisa sax because he's like, "Oh, you haven't contributed," and Lisa really doesn't want to play her saxophone in front of the kids.
And I wonder why, because I feel like now Lisa would have whipped it out and played something. So why do you guys think that she was like, was it the Mr. Bergstrom thing? Or do you think if Hoover...
I think it was just the kids in the class.
No. I'm gonna go with Chrissy. I think it was Mr. Bergstrom because obviously we could tell she has a crush on him.
Okay.
And the kids, she's been playing in band concerts since forever. Right. So I think her playing in front of the class, I think that wouldn't have bugged. I think Miss Hoover, I don't think would have ever asked, but no. I think if she would have asked, I think Lisa would have been fine playing in front of the class. I think she was just smitten with Mr. Bergstrom and just didn't feel comfortable, you know, because what if she messed up? What if she missed a note? Then he might think less of her.
Yeah.
That is very true.
So we get to the next scene, and this is by far probably my favorite scene. I've never seen The Graduate. I should probably watch it. But Mrs. Krabappel is in the classroom trying to seduce Mr. Bergstrom, which is a reference to Hoffman's similar situation in the 1967 film The Graduate. And she goes, she is technically still married, but her husband has moved out, which not really shocker because in the sushi episode, she makes out with the chef. So
yes, she's playing the field.
So I would like to know how long her husband's been moved out, because that sushi episode was what, early season 2?
Yeah. So maybe she was cheating on him and her husband found out and moved out after that.
Yeah.
But I do like how it's the reference of The Graduate, like Miss Krabappel's leg and Bergstrom behind it. That's like the direct shot from the movie poster.
Okay.
For The Graduate. Fun fact. So Lisa admires Mr. Bergstrom for not giving in to Krabappel. So he has, some dignity.
Yeah.
Some.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I like how Lisa then decides to play her sax outside the classroom for Mr. Bergstrom while he's listening from the window. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. The shot of Mr. Bergstrom looking at Lisa, did that not come from the second floor? And if so, how is Bart's... okay, so did Mr. Krabappel go down to Mr. Bergstrom's classroom? Because obviously it was the floor below.
Yeah,
or did Mr. Bergstrom... Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So did Mr. Bergstrom go upstairs to Miss Krabappel's room?
No, I have a feeling Mrs. Krabappel went downstairs.
Okay, so why did the shot look like he was up on the second floor looking down at Lisa? Because we all know that Lisa's classroom is on the main level, because when they look outside, the grass is right there. And
shh, creative choices. Shh.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know, why they decided to do that, because they established her classroom as on ground level.
But here's the thing: in Bart gets an F. I feel like
he's on the first floor.
Yeah, I feel like his is established on the first floor as well.
That's true.
So I'm gonna go with the animators just decided to do whatever they felt like.
Or we could think of it like this. The classrooms in Springfield Elementary are sporadic. So English class is in one room, math class is in a different room, and oddly enough, they changed floors. The
Yeah.
floors don't mean anything. So maybe
Oh.
the last class that Mr. Bergstrom was substituting in was on the second floor.
I can't get over that quote. Floors don't mean anything.
The points are just like floors. They don't mean
Yes,
anything.
they don't matter.
They don't matter.
I love that.
So after we watched Mr. Bergstrom watching Lisa play her sax, we cut back to the Simpsons house where Lisa and Marge are doing laundry. And I do like the fact, I don't know why I pointed this out. I just thought it was kind of a funny little tidbit that Snowball 2 gets in the way of Marge doing laundry.
Snowball 2
Yeah.
also looked smaller to me. Like, it looked more kitten-like.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was pretty playful and small because it fit on the washing machine. Like the Snowball 2 fit on the washing machine. Now, to be fair, my cat has been 7 pounds since he was 2 years old. So he still looks fairly tiny from then.
Yeah,
Unless it was just an animation gaffe.
maybe.
I mean, I'm trying to think back to when Santa's Little Helper and Snowball 2 were on Homer's Groove and does a size reference, but I really can't think of that right now.
I just thought it was funny because, cats are jerks.
Oh, yeah. And then I like how Lisa clearly has a crush on Mr. Bergstrom, so we finally find that out. And they just keep, like, Lisa's always like, yeah, but Mr. Bergstrom's this. And Marge is like, yeah, I get that same feeling from Homer.
Yes, I loved that conversation between the two of them because as a female, I've definitely had this conversation with my mom when I've had my crushes. Like, but mom, you don't understand. Like, and it's so like it seems so silly when you look back at that. Like me now, 33, I'm like, yes, Marge, yes. You tell her. But like watching this the first time, I was like, yes, Lisa, tell her she doesn't understand.
As a male, I don't think I ever had those kind of conversations with either of our parents.
No, definitely not. And I don't think I'd ever want to. As a guy, I don't think I'd ever want to. But it's just so funny to think about that, and obviously things are, and I just read about this the other day about season 1 and kind of season 2 where the dysfunctionality between Marge and Homer, and Marge in the bowling episode almost has an affair. Homer almost has an affair. I mean, it's one of those things that's kind of a dynamic, but we do learn kind of through this that Marge will always have that soft spot for Homer, regardless of his screw up. So I do think that kind of impact we'll kind of see going forward throughout the episodes where, yeah, we know Marge has this type of connection to Homer, even though he might screw up, it'll always be there. So when Marge and Lisa walk into the kitchen, there is clearly not a door.
I totally missed that. Clearly. I did not even notice that.
Okay, so remember in, what was it? Was it
Babysitter Bandit episode?
No, it was where Selma gets the date with Skinner, Principal Charming. So remember how they go into the kitchen and they shut the door to talk secretly?
Yeah.
And remember there was a door.
Yeah.
And we were going to put a pin in it and come back to see if that door ever showed up again. The door's not there. The door's not there.
He gone.
Yep. So obviously, like I mentioned in that episode, I was like, you know what? They screwed in some hinges and made a door available to shut so they could talk privately in the kitchen without disturbing Homer in the other room. And they just took it off. And remember, I told you on my on my Simpsons Lego house, there was no door there either between the kitchen and the living room.
You compared it to your Lego house.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, that's good.
We use the Lego Simpsons house for a point of reference for a lot of stuff in the early episode. Because here's the thing about the Simpsons house for all of our listeners out there, it likes to change. So we have to have a point of reference, and one of us actually has the house. So
yes.
Oh, that's.
I feel like the Simpsons writers should have obviously the Lego company just came out this house. I think it was like 5-6 years ago. But I feel like they should have just physically drawn the house somewhere and said, okay, guys, anytime you have a question on what the house looks like or needs to do, here's a picture of it. An architectural drawing of the Simpson house for
Yeah.
reference. But they failed.
Yeah.